Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Actually, yesterday I talked about the traveling lounge. If you're not subscribed, please do subscribe to the traveling lounge. It's free, it's gratis. Mi gente, suscribe para mi canal. So, so today I actually want to talk about what the statement that President Museveni of Uganda just made when he was in Kenya recently, when he gave a press conference at State House, Nairobi, and together with the with the Ruto, who's the current president of Kenya. And what I wanted to notice is that this time Museveni got it right. Ask me why Museveni got it right. Uh, Museveni was actually a freedom fighter, more or less a freedom fighter when he came from the bush. Actually, he was in exile in Tanzania, learned history, went to university over there, then came back and went to the bush, and fought for independence. Not for independence, but fought to overthrow the government of the day that was there. I think it was General Tito Okello was who was or Obote, I'm not sure. Either Tito Okello or Obote was in power at that time. And that time, Museveni actually talked about dismantling the colonial borders and recreating the kingdoms, the traditional kingdoms. But yesterday, actually not yesterday, 2 days ago, President Museveni talked of something much, much broader about the formation of the East African Federation, or the Federal Republic of East Africa. And this is actually long overdue. He had his arguments based on the peoples who live, the people who live in those in these East African countries, and also the strength in numbers. I made some videos recently about the Luos, how they extensively live in Sudan, Ethiopia, northern Uganda, central Uganda, western Uganda, eastern Uganda around Tororo, and in Kenya, in northeastern Congo, and also in Tanzania, around Bukoba, Mwanza. So given that these groups of this tribe actually lives in like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 countries, what's the rationale of having these colonial borders? You also more or less mentioned the same thing, that the Luos who live over here, the same Luos live in Uganda. And also the Pokot who live in Kenya. There's also Pokot, it spills over, and Pokot also live in Uganda. They're known as Karamojong. The same with the Turkana who live in Kenya. Some of them live in Sudan. Some of them live in Uganda. The same with the Maasais. Actually, the same with the Tesos, who live in Kenya and also live in Uganda. The same with the Maasais. The Maasais also live all around, all the way from Lake Turkana, just a little bit south of Lake Turkana, all the way up to Nairobi, up to Samburu, and into Tanzania, into the Serengeti National Park, or the Serengeti area. So the Maasais actually live in a much bigger area covering both Kenya and Tanzania. The Kuria also live in both countries, Kenya and Tanzania. The Taveta people, like Taita Taveta, the Mijikenda, the Taita Taveta people also live both in Kenya and Tanzania. And if we go down towards the coast, also the people who live around the border of Tanzania and Kenya along the coast also live in both countries. The Pemba people also live in both countries, technically, Kenya and Tanzania. So his rationale was that while you have the same people living in all these countries, why not merge these countries into one federation? That makes a lot of sense. The East African Federation would be a more powerful country, or the Federal Republic of East Africa would actually be a more powerful country militarily, politically, and given the population and the inventions that come with the bigger population. So I think this is the first time, according to me, that Museveni got it right. Museveni has been a dictator, technically a dictator, after he came into power. And he's hounded Kizza Besigye for so long, not allowed free elections in this country, Uganda. And also he's hounded like Bobby Wine. Bobby Wine actually, I think, won the vote for the last election, but all the votes were, most of the Bobby Wine's votes were counted as Museveni's vote. So Museveni like got 75%, which is, I think, is a bit of a joke, because Bobby Wine actually got, I think, got more votes than Museveni. Yeah. So the fact that he's been a dictator, more or less, and not allowed uh, like democracy to 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 more or less take root in Uganda. He has more or less, like the Ugandans probably have also liked him, because he has more or less brought the country into normality after the Idi Amin fiasco. So he's done a lot of bad things, but this time I think with the Federal Republic of East Africa, this time Museveni got it right. Uh, so I think when he was talking during this speech, I could see Ruto listen. Museveni is actually a historian, and he knows about all this historical movement of people in Africa and the kingdoms, the traditional kingdoms. As he was talking, I could see Ruto listen uh, and smile. Basically, Museveni, I think, was talking at a much deeper level, much deeper level. I don't know if Ruto really got the grip of what Museveni was talking about. But given that the people of East Africa live in several countries, why not merge them into one country? Uh, so when Museveni came into power, he actually reinstated the tribal kingdoms, like the Baganda kingdom, the Bajankole kingdom, and so on and so forth. Although culturally, not politically, so that they have their own kings, but the kings have no power. And I remember when Museveni was coming into power, he actually mentioned that colonial colonial artificial borders that were created by the colonists actually should have no bearing. They should not. They should not exist. Basically, I think technically that's what he was meaning. But then, if you go back to the tribal uh, kingdoms or the tribal nations that were there, you find them probably too small to probably operate as a state. Although Rwanda technically is like a tribal kingdom that operates like a state, like the Hutu and the Tutsis, basically just two groups of people. People say they also want just one group that's separated by the colonists, yeah, based on their features. But Rwanda is a very small country compared like to Kenya. It's like a district in Kenya. It's like a small district of Kenya. Tiny district, really. If Rwanda can be a country, well, why not the tribal kingdoms can be countries too? Yeah. But I think he was looking at it from a much more wider, more global perspective, with a more rational analysis that while these tribal communities could still form nations, because those are actually the tribal nations, the tribal communities like the Luo Kingdom, the Luo, can call it the Luo Republic, stretching all the way from Baigazal, Equatorial, to to southwestern Ethiopia, to southern Sudan, to northern Uganda, where the Cholis live around there, all the way to where the Lur live in eastern Congo, down to where the Luos Tororo, where do the Luos live in around Kisumu, where the Luos live in Tororo, the Lur, and all the way where to the Luos live in Bukoba, Mwanza in Tanzania. So that could be like one country. Although it's not contingent, like they're not connecting, so they're like patches. So these patches, there'll be a difficulty of putting these patches together into one republic, or it's not a contingent piece of land. I think that is probably a shortcoming of that. However, it can still be done. This Luo kingdoms can still exist in their patches, and in terms of counties, or or I can say counties or districts, whatever, depending on which country you are in. So if you look at also the Somali live in Kenya, they live in Ethiopia, they live in Somalia, they live in Djibouti. So they live in all, like, almost 4 countries. Yeah. If you live Somaliland, then if you include Somaliland, then they live like in 5 countries technically. So if these countries could merge into one, have the tribal kingdoms have their own like state based on the tribe, because those are the nations, really the nations of Africa. They're actually the tribal kingdoms, and then coalesce these tribal kingdoms into a federation. That's probably the solution even to the M23 in Congo. So because the Tutsis who live in Congo and the ones who live in Rwanda, and then there's where do they really belong? Yeah, and okay, Kagame, take care of your people. And now Kagame says, no, those are your people, but I support them militarily to destabilize that area because of the minerals. Some hogwash, really. But so that bigger picture of merging East Africa into the East African Federation or the Federal Republic of East Africa would actually create a more rational approach into state development or development of a statehood, because these tribal nations are actually what were there before the colonists came, and and uh, and these tribal nations could still coalesce into a bigger country, like the Federal Republic of East Africa, similar to the Federal Republic of Germany. Uh, and this can actually sort some of the problems that we have, like the Tutsis fighting the Hutus. That's just a small group of people. The Al-Shabaab, some a small group of radical people. So when you have like one big country, the Federal Republic of East Africa, made up of probably Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Sudan, South Sudan. Recently, Museveni attacked the leader of Sudan of claiming the Arabs are the Africans. Yeah. So this colonial mentality still sticks around for too long. So when this emerging these countries, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Sudan or South Sudan, Ethiopia, Somalia, Uganda, I've said Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi, Malawi, Congo, and the Mozambique, and actually Mozambique. Mozambique would still be part of that bigger federation. So this will be a much more stronger country, much bigger, with one military, one language, Swahili. Swahili is spoken in all these countries, basically. So it's a unifying language that borrows from all the other languages with a little Arabic, and it's a more unifying language that can be used as a national language and also as a language of education. Also, having one currency, get rid of the borders, all those boundaries between the countries, because you find the Maasai live both in Kenya and Tanzania. They'll keep on moving back and forth, so there was the point of having that boundary there. The Kurias, the same, they move back and forth into Kenya and Tanzania. The Turkana, the Pokot also move back and forth from Kenya and Uganda. So the Luos also move back and forth from Kenya and Tanzania and some into Uganda. So, and the same, probably the Lur moving back from Uganda into Congo, back into Uganda. So the Lur has a bigger population in northeastern Congo. And why not just have one country, one country covering all these groups of people? Yeah. So actually, the counties or the countries can still maintain their semi-autonomous regions based on the tribal regions, and they can have their own number plates, their own rules or laws, but the federal regulation basically should probably override all those regulations and rules of the tribal nations. So they call them counties with their governors and so on and so forth. Uh, my take on that was that if this was to be realized, I hope it gets realized sometimes this year, if not next year, uh, would be to create a new capital. Right now, the East African community, I think that's Hogwash. It's been there for like 60 years or so. And it's never merged into a federation. And unless there's really some push to get into federation, each country will have to operate on their own little cocoons here, more or less. But if the countries all agree and merge into one federation, then I think the capital city of that East African Federation or the Federal Republic of East Africa should be based somewhere between two countries. Not Nairobi, not Arusha, not Dar es Salaam, not Kampala, none of that. It probably should be a border town that covers actually two of the large countries, like between Kenya and Tanzania, like somewhere like around Namanga, where the Maasais live, and they cover both Kenya and Tanzania. They live in both countries. So there's a flat area, like Namanga is a flat area where it's easy to create a city out of that area. Just create a city, a capital city out of nothing. Infrastructure, roads, railways, and electricity, water, and all that. So that can be done. Already we have the East African Assembly. So my idea, as I put in my live, if you go back and watch my live, which I did yesterday, I just thought of reinforcing this information today on a video and not a live, because the video reaches like a certain clientele and a certain group of people, while the live reaches only those who watch it at that particular time, unless they go back and look for that live. So what I mentioned yesterday is that it's easier to create a new city like Namanga, which is already a town, a border town between Kenya and Tanzania, and create a city there which covers both countries, a big city that lies in both countries. That way, you are able to have like a neutral, more or less like a neutral capital city. Just because Kenya and Tanzania are the larger players, it's more rational to have the city between the two of them. Yeah, or covering the two of them. That way, no each particular country can lay claim to that particular city. So it becomes the capital of the East African or the Federal Republic of East Africa. So we have the language, so monetary unity, like have one currency instead of having the Kenya shilling, Uganda shilling, Tanzania shilling. Just have the East African shilling. It used to be East African shilling a long time ago. Just go back to the East African shilling, and that way you have one currency, East African shilling, and one language, Swahili, one currency, the East African shilling, and or shilingi, if you want to say it in Swahili. So the one language, Swahili, one currency, the East African shilling, and we already have the East African Assembly, which serves the East African community. So my take was that's my opinion, was that expand the East African Assembly into a bigger federal assembly that covers all the countries and each tribal grouping or each tribal nation in each country. So let's say each tribal nation sends like 5 representatives. Then you'll have probably, and there are like 50 tribal nations in Kenya. Let's say about, let's go with an average of 40 tribal nations or 30 tribal nations, and each one of them sent like 5. Then you'll have like just at about slightly less than 200 representatives. So so that's not really a very big number. So it can be 5, 40, 50, or like around 200, 300. So a figure of about 300 representatives is workable. That's what we have like in the US, about 350. whatever. So if you have like a house like that to make laws, then it's likely that the laws made will be more rational and more representative of the whole East African Federation. So my take was, my opinion is that increase the number of representatives. Let every tribe be represented in this the Federal Republic of East African Assembly, or the East African Assembly. Uh, so let each tribe be represented, because actually the nations are the tribal nations, and then they elect one leader. They elect one leader, like a parliamentary system of representation, just like I could say just like Israel elects as leaders. No particular president goes to the poll. Others, the parties go to the poll, and then they appoint one of them, the leader of the party, to be the president. So if this large assembly, very large assembly, is able to elect its president or prime minister, whoever, whatever they call it, prime minister, um, then that way it takes off the heat of these presidential elections and all these tribal clashes, each tribe trying to show its hegemony over another tribe and all that. So that will more or less be neutralized with that, because there's a big group of people, like 300 or so, from all different tribes, electing this particular one prime minister, who will actually be the leader of the East African Federation, the political and leader of the East African Federation, and therefore would create a government, yeah, out of all this, everybody, inclusive of every tribe in the federation. Technically, that's what should happen. And then you have one military too. So when there's one military, uh, one currency, one language, then the country is most likely to be a powerful country, likely to develop faster, and also create there's a bigger market for the goods, and also there's free movement of people within that federation, uh, because already there's free movement of people, whether the borders or not. People just move back and forth. You can't stop them. Some go through the borders, some don't go through the borders. They go through what's called panya routes, like mice routes, like just through the bushes from one country to the other. Yeah. So allow people to move, to trade, to move from every part of the federation, and that way you still maintain the tribal nations with their own number plates and their own laws and regulations for that particular area, like with a governor, just the way the states are or the counties are managed, with a governor and a local assembly, and they elect their own leaders, and then the East African Assembly elects the leader of the federation. So that way, these small problems, like having Tutsis fighting Hutus in a small country like Rwanda, would be like a thing of the past. Yeah, and the Al Shabaab being like a pest on the others would disappear, because we'll have a big, huge army. There'll be a big, huge army and a big population, and one small group of people may not really be a problem. Yeah. So that's my take on Museveni's proposal of forming the Federal Republic of East Africa, and I think this should happen in the near future. Uh, all these East African communities hogwash. Yeah. Let's just have the federation, and already there's a passport. There's an East African passport. There's one language, English. No, I'm sorry. There's one language, Swahili, not English. Of course, English is there too. But there's one language, one unifying language, Swahili, which everybody speaks in the East African region. And then there's just merge the currencies into one currency, the East African shilling, period. And drop a constitution, the East African constitution, federal constitution that will cover all the countries that are in the federation. So that's my take. Museveni was like talking about China sent people to the moon. The US sent people to the moon a long time ago. Russia did the same. Recently, India also sent people to the moon. And here, Kenya, Uganda, we are still like trading, small trade. We need to put our minds together into one strong country, both militarily and politically, that can probably create innovation. Here we are getting roads being built by the Chinese. Dude, let's get our heads together. Let's get this population together and uh, and uh, and uh, and let's make this East African Federation of the Federal Republic of East Africa a strong country that can be listened to. And if that happens, all these problems we have, like in Congo, foreign powers intervening because of the mining rights. They want to mine the gold and the diamond in the Congo. That will cease because there'll be a very big country with a big army, and which is not easy to manipulate by foreign forces like China, the West, or Russia, sending mercenaries into Africa and all that and all that BS. So that's my take. These are actually my opinions, but I'm just analyzing the situation. But I'm also adding my own learned opinion. When you look at the Bolshevik Revolution, it actually was initiated in the Balkans, not in Russia. In the Balkans, that's where the academics got together. Karl Marx, those angels, and all this debate about economic models. And then this was now transported into Russia, and the masses were involved. So the academics or the elites, we can call elites, but the academics in a society always should take a leading role, and notice they're the ones who actually get the ideas out based on the analysis and studies, and then get it out to the masses, and the masses join, and a change it takes place. And I know Museveni is an academic. He studied history extensively. That's why he restored those Baganda kingdoms. Yeah. So I hope Ruto was listening. Ruto has a PhD. I think he's, I don't know which area, I guess environmental science, but whatever the case, Ruto also has a PhD as an academic, should have listened to what Museveni was saying, because Museveni was talking of a much, much bigger picture, not the tribal shenanigans that go around in each country, but a much, much bigger picture. I think I salute people like John Garang de Babior, Dr. John Garang de Babior of the South Sudan, who fought for independence of the South Sudan for quite a long time. But unfortunately, he was not able to live and enjoy the fruits of his struggles for a long, which he fought for basically most of his adult life. Museveni already sees an issue. The Luos, the Cholis, they occupy almost half of Uganda. They live in Kenya, they live in Congo, they live in Sudan, they live in Ethiopia. And I guess, I don't want to say Museveni also sees that probably as a threat too, because the Baganda, the Banyankole actually cover a little area. Whether Museveni sees that getting a bigger federation solves the problem of having a group of people feel marginalized, like the Acholi in the north of Uganda feeling marginalized, while there's a big population of Acholi in South Sudan, and if they decide to merge all of them, plus the Luos in Kenya, and the ones plus the ones in Tanzania, plus the ones in the Democratic Republic of Congo, they'll probably take over most of Sudan, Uganda, and part of Kenya, and create it into one country. When Jaramogi was thinking about the Luo Union in East Africa, wow, I don't know what he was thinking, but he was probably looking far. Because I had Museveni say already there's a Jaramogi clan somewhere in northern Uganda. So it's not really a threat. It shouldn't be seen as a threat of the Luos uniting and forming their own Luo kingdom, but rather we should have a bigger federation, a smaller. I mean, the tribes can have their own govern themselves in form of a county or a district. The Luya, the Kikuyu, the Kalenjin, the Mijikenda, the whatever, they can have their own governors and all that, and make their own rules and self-governance. But then we have a bigger federation that takes care of the security, the military, and also puts in things together, stuff like social security, education, and all that. Yeah. So I guarantee education and health and all that stuff. Yeah. So that's my take on Museveni's hint that it's time for East Africa to form the Federal Republic of East Africa and get out of the East African community. So let's form the Federal Republic of East Africa, or you could call it the East African Federation, and get out of the East African community that has been there for 60 or so years without making any headways. Yeah. And still, countries can still have their identity, tribes can still have their identity, but we're better, we're stronger together than separate, and that's a fact. So if South Africa is listening, if this federation is formed, it will just as big as South Africa and as powerful as South Africa. Already there are other countries that have talked about forming a federation, like Mali, Guinea, where the coups happened. And that's a good step too. That's a good step towards African unity when these countries can merge into a federation. It gives a bigger area, which bring more resources, all the uranium they have over there, all the mines they have over there. They can put their heads together, mine them, and produce and actually develop that region. The same with East Africa. All the mines in Congo, the diamonds, the gold in Congo, in Tanzania, Shinyanga, and all that. If we come to Kenya, the oil in Turkana and all that, the oil in Uganda, the oil in South Sudan, in Somalia, in Ethiopia. So if all these countries come together as a federation, the Federal Republic of East Africa, it will be a much more economically viable, economically strong, really not viable, but economically strong nation that does not have to depend on China to build for it roads, can send people to the moon, can have their own satellites, and of course create modern living for its own people, for developers, infrastructure, and all that, and don't have to beg for aid from the West or from the East or whatever the case might be. So that's my take, and I hope you guys enjoy this video. I had to actually repeat the same things I said in the live. Go back and watch my live. I've got a live where I talked about this Museveni issue, and it was more spontaneous. This one is more scripted because I've thought it over, and but the other one, the live, is more spontaneous. If you go to my lives, the most recent live is more spontaneous reaction to, I'm not a reactor, no. It's more spontaneous analysis of Museveni's take of the formation of the East African Federation, or the Federal Republic of East Africa. So I hope we guys will be living in the Federal Republic of East Africa soon. I myself, I'm not in East Africa right now, but that's my home, that's where I came from. So I hope we'll be living in the Federal Republic of East Africa very soon, and with one passport, which we already have, with one legislative assembly, which we already have, with one currency, which can be merged easily from the shillings, the Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania shilling, and Rwandan, whatever, and all that, Ethiopian birr, Somali, whatever, South Sudan, whatever, they cannot be merged into one East African shilling, and therefore we have one currency, and of course one language, Swahili, and one strong military that can be able to protect its people and ensure freedom and democracy is able to be perpetuated within the region. Yeah, that's my take, and I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you're not subscribed to the Traveling Lion, please subscribe, like, and share. Actually, I was thinking of starting another channel for this kind of socioeconomic talk. This is more socioeconomic talk, more political, not political but socioeconomic, because that's the angle I'm coming from. But they say there's no economics without politics. So, so the socioeconomic, these are political. Actually, it's a political, economic kind of analysis of the trends happening around the world. And I just decided to start with Kenya because I'm originally from there, and East Africa, and therefore as I merge, as I continue this analysis, I'll see whether to have it in this travel channel, because this is my travel vlogging channel, or whether to have it as separate, different channel for these political discussions. Not political, I keep saying political, well, political. These socioeconomic discussions, I try to move away from political. I try to be more socioeconomic. So these socioeconomic discussions of arrangements that can be made to improve the socioeconomic welfare of the people. So I'll discuss stuff also about Ukraine and Russia, about Israel, which I know is sensitive, but I've lived there. I've been in Israel several times, and I can see the perspective of both from the Israeli perspective and also from the Palestinian perspective, and try to find a middle road. I've observed what's happening in South Africa with their support of Putin and support of the Hamas and stuff like that. And yeah, that will be another topic for another day. Although technically I think South Africa has gotten it wrong. When you support a butcher, somebody killing people in Ukraine, Putin. I like Russians. I've got friends who are Russians. I've got no problem with Russians. They're very nice people. But when Putin now gets into Ukraine and starts killing people in Ukraine, anybody supporting that, I think, needs to examine their minds. Yeah, so that's why I say South Africa got it wrong. Julius Malema, the president also, they got it wrong in terms of supporting Putin. For Israel, I think it's more delicate balance, because the question would be like, who are the Palestinians and who are the Israelis, and where exactly should Palestine be and where exactly should Israel be, and whether the two-state solution really solves that problem. So that's a much more delicate issue, and I'll probably discuss it in another video. Since the lives don't seem to get a lot of views, I'll go with the videos, and people can comment. You can comment down there what you think, and then we can actually have a discussion, an open discussion, freedom of expression. Tell me what you think, and maybe I'm right, maybe you are right, maybe you are wrong, maybe I'm wrong. All these opinions come together, all this analysis come together, and we come up with a middle ground that's more rational and more acceptable to everyone. So that's my take on Museveni, and so I'll either start another channel. I'll see how this video picks up first of all, then I'll decide whether to start another channel for these socioeconomic discussions and analysis, or continue having them into my travel vlog channel, and see how it goes. So that's all for now. Adios amigos, adios amigas, muchachas, I love you. To the beach and back, that's my catchphrase. I love you guys to the beach and back. So if you're not subscribed to this channel, please do subscribe, like and share, and let's see how this discussion unfolds. See you next time. Ciao.